All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Planning and Heritage Committee meeting, Tuesday, July 2nd. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Do we have any declaration of conflicts today? Seeing none, can I have an approval of the agenda? Moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor McCabe.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Your Worship. Yes?
She's good to go.
Go ahead, Your Worship. Sorry about that.
So just on the, under introduction of new business, Madam Chair, this item come up, it's again, a couple of notices of motions. First is when we gave the second reading for the enforcement amendment bylaw, enforcement and summary proceedings bylaw. I'm just asking if Donna can just scan our zoning and development bylaw and where we might have to update and incorporate it into the summary proceedings bylaw under the schedule. I think Donna, maybe Schedule A or Schedule B. Is that correct, Donna? Could I just ask through the chair?
It is Schedule B,
It is Schedule B.
and we can add that to our next agenda. We'll have the staff prepare
Good.
something for our next meeting. Maybe not the next meeting, but whatever time frame that the staff needs to prepare something to bring back to us.
Good. And Madam Chair, it's something you and I spoke about. This is second notice of motion. You did put up a notice of motion on waiving the fees for an organization regarding their application to request for a site-specific rezoning. So do we know where that is, Madam Chair?
So the CAO and I just spoke of this morning. So this will come out now formally as a notice of motion. But just to clarify, my notice of motion will read, and I'll just paraphrase, it will be an opportunity for like-minded examples like what we just went through with the site-specific exemption, but not just specific to that, but it will be for folks that are out there in the community potentially doing good charitable work and their charitable foundations, and they could have the opportunity to apply for a reduction in a fee, or they could apply for a grant. So I believe that's coming through as a notice of motion, and then staff will come back to us with some options on that. So that's where we are.
Okay.
Okay?
And just to follow up
If I
on-
may,
Yes?
Chair, the staff in the Planning and Heritage Department has begun that research, and we will be taking that back to committee next time we meet.
Perfect. Thank you for that update, Donna.
And just an addendum to that second notice
Yes,
of
Your
motion. We've had emails, and I know Councillor Beck and I have shared some emails from constituents regarding the relocation of the community fridge. And it appears that they're asking the city to do that work. And I made it quite clear, Madam Chair, is that any organization that's looking for a piece of property to do community work or provide us community service, we don't do the legwork. So I don't know if we should send something out to the Community Fridge organization to indicate that we are in the process. Our responsibility is to administer the zoning development bylaw, and how anyone wishes to look at permissible use for whatever they may be doing. So I just want to add that as a notice of motion for the next meeting.
So I can give you a bit of an update on that, Your Worship. And an email did go out from the Planning and Heritage staff, letting the applicant from that specific, site-specific application kind of know, and that I think now the onus is back on them. If they want to reach out to staff, staff can help them identify specific zoning areas of the city. And so if there's any other update, without putting Mike on the spot, but I do believe that that communication went out a week or so ago. So I think the ball is back in their court.
No need for an update if Mike wants to give one, but I just want to say this, Madam Chair. Can we get a copy of that email from staff that was sent to the person that we're speaking of?
I can't answer that, but I can ask Mike. I wasn't privy to the email. It was an operational email, but I'm not sure how that works.
Through the chair, I can share the email correspondence with the committee if that's your wish.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. So now adoption of the minutes from our meeting from June the 4th. Moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor McCabe. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you. And any business arising from those minutes?
Yeah, I just have a question on page 3. So I do remember from this meeting, we sought various clarifications from Melanie, our legal representative at that time. Partway down the paragraph, it's after the 16.1, the paragraph that comes after that. It was about a warning for our summary ticket offenses, and I remember I had asked the question. And when I read this summarization here, or summary, I don't quite understand what it's saying, to be honest. When it says, Deputy Mayor responded that the bylaw officers wish a verbal reminder before they do a ticket. So if it's not documented that they verbally already did this, it looks like they didn't get any warning when they might have already been warned several times.
Looking for that in the discussions.
It's on page 3,
Oh, page 3.
part way down.
No.
Page
I'm-
3.
It's where it says
There's a
clarification was
paragraph
sought
that
on the
says-
option of warning. And I think when I read that, Councillor Beck, she was just explaining why they would give a ticket the first time that they contravene the bylaw versus it's for record keeping that they will. Didn't we have discussion around like we'd have a warning check or something and?
We didn't keep any record of that. And that was kind of my question, was that should there be a box there that would say, listen, person X was issued a warning on this date, and then it was decided to leave it blank because the feeling was that oftentimes officers would go through and issue a warning or would talk to the person, but there's really no record of that. So we really had no kind of idea of what it was, but.
Can I intervene?
Sure, you go ahead.
I still haven't.
Okay, so what was discussed there was that it was noted that the bylaw officers would note for their purposes that they issued warnings to the perpetrators, and then they would have those records for follow-up just in case they need it in terms of when they get to the point of issuing a ticket. So it's something that's not recorded in like
On a form.
on a form or something like
Yes.
that, but it's something that they are aware of and they have in their individual records for
Okay.
usage if needed.
Yes, I do recall that, Don, and you are correct. I do recall that discussion. I think that should somehow be captured here in this part, and I don't know if it really, if I'm reading this, I don't know if that actually captures the nature of our conversation. I do agree, and I do concur with your recollection as well, because that's similar to mine. I just want the minutes to kind of reflect, so maybe we might have to look at wordsmithing that a little bit, so it does, because I don't think the way it's worded right now there actually captures what we talked about, because we're sitting here and we have three different people and interpreting it three different ways, almost. And the poor deputy can't even find it to even know how to interpret it in the first place.
All right, no problem. We can do that, Jason.
So, is that good? Okay, thank you. Well, I leave that wording sort of to you, Donna, to work out with Jason, and you guys kind of come back.
Yeah, we do. Yes, through the chair to Councillor Beck, we do that and take it back for confirmation or approval at the next meeting.
Excellent, thank you.
And Madam Chair, if I'm just going to ask Donna that, Donna, as you said when we completed the second reading of the bylaw, the summary offense, summary offense ticketing, or summary proceedings bylaw, that this would just be a template, so we can add, amend as we go along, correct? That's what we're doing today, and I'm sure in the next meetings to come.
We can, Your Worship, through
Thank-
Madam Chair, yes, we
Thank
can.
Okay.
Okay, where are we at? I guess that was a business rising from the minutes.
Yep.
We'll move on to our reports and discussions. The first one we have up is the City of Charlottetown's draft official plan update. I believe, Donna, are you doing that, or is Mike doing that?
I'm doing that, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So the purpose of this report is to provide an update on where we are in terms of preparing the new official plan for the city and to seek the committee's recommendation to proceed to planning board for recommendation to council to proceed to a public meeting per section 11 of the Planning Act. So to commence the approval process of getting the bylaw enacted, not the bylaw, the official plan, enacted, there is a process outlined in the Planning Act starting at section 11 where we have to proceed to planning board. So that's why we're here today. As the consultants are nearing the completion of the plan document, we've circulated the document to different ministries and departments throughout Charlottetown. They've given us their feedback and we've shared those as well with the consultants who are in the process of incorporating those. We are also in the process of reviewing the document in the Department of Planning and Heritage, and we also hope that we will send along the document to different departments throughout the city after we've completed our review. Therefore, in accordance with Section 11 of the Planning Act, and that's outlined in Attachment A in your package, the planning board must allow residents and other interested persons an opportunity to make representations at a public meeting before recommending that council approves any official plan or update of any official plan. So subsequently, as mandated by Section 13 of the Planning Act, the planning board, after having the public meeting, will then have to vote and then recommend that council adopts this official plan by resolution. It is not intended that the official plan will go to a regular planning board meeting, as this would need a separate meeting to have the fulsome discussion that is needed. And so after today's meeting, it is expected that upon completion of the official plan document, and the reviews have been incorporated. The comments from the reviews, have been incorporated. Then we will proceed to a special meeting of planning board to ask for a recommendation to proceed to public meeting and to then continue the process to have the document reviewed and then brought back to council for adoption and subsequent enactment after the signing off by the minister. So it is staff's recommendation that the Planning and Heritage Committee accepts our request to bring the draft official plan to Planning Board to seek recommendation to council to proceed to a public meeting.
Thanks, Donna. So just to clarify, special planning board meeting for a recommendation, the recommendation would still need to go to council to recommend the public meeting. After the public meeting, then it would return to planning board and then back to council. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Same process. Gotcha. Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Go ahead, Councillor Beck.
I was just looking through the processes there. Under 15B, copy of the, page 10. It says a copy of the official plan is approved by minister shall be published in the Gazette. What's the Gazette?
It's Royal Gazette. It's the Royal Gazette. It's anything that government does, like, for example, name someone to a ABC or amendments to statutes, acts. It's a publication from the province.
It houses all these sorts of things?
Yep.
Okay, good. I didn't know. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
could-
Your
Could I
Worship.
ask Donna, through you to Donna? Donna, part of that public consultation process, because we are on live stream, could we not look at it first as a planning committee, a standing committee of planning, development, and heritage, so that we get an understanding of it as the councillors, members at large that sit on this standing committee, and go through it, and then then it goes on to planning board. I think that would probably go a little beyond the public consultation process, but I think I think we all share the same view that we want to keep this process open, transparent, and accountable.
Thanks for that, Your
So-
Worship. Donna, is that something, can this come back through to the Planning and Heritage Committee first so that we can have an opportunity through live stream to ask questions to the staff prior to going to planning board, so we're better prepared for the planning board meeting?
So it can be done, but it's not a requirement under the Planning Act. But just to add that at the planning board meeting, we would go through the entire document to do a summary of what is there as opposed to what was in the now existing official plan. So it would mean that we would go through it at Planning and Heritage Committee and then do the same thing again at Planning Board, then go through it again at public meeting. So it would make for a kind of repetitive kind of process, but it's something that we can do if council wishes that we do that.
So I'm going to just check with the committee here. I mean, it might be a little repetitive, but it's also a pretty important document for us to get our heads around in terms of being able to speak of it publicly. So I'll leave it up to the committee. Would you like it to come here, and then you'll see the same report at planning board? It's up to you guys.
I think we just go with what Donna was talking about, that we see it at the committee level, and then the board level, and then council level, and
No,
public
she's saying it
consultation. That's
doesn't.
what she said, wasn't it?
She said, no, it would go, we won't see it again until it goes to planning board. So what she's saying is that today, we would recommend that this, next time we see the official plan, it will be at planning board. So what his worship is saying is, can we bring it back to committee first prior to going to the board? And what Donna says is, it's not legislatively a rule that we have to, but we can if we choose to. So I'm asking committee, what do you want to do? Do you want it to just bypass us and go right to the board? Or would you like to have a look at it first before it goes to planning board?
I'm not married to one, but I just think we go with whatever the legislation requires.
My reason for bringing that up, Madam Chair, is that in the end, we will have to sell it to the public. You as chair, Councillor Beck, Councillor McCabe, we will have to sell it to the public. The issue I'm concerned about is Summerside is going through this same process, is the one property, 4 units. They're having some issues with their council trying to get on board with it. And I think the more that we talk about it, the more we get to understand it, the more questions and answers that are provided, whether at this committee level or the planning board level or the public consultation, I think that will provide a platform to educate all of us on the importance of one property, 4 units. And it's not going to be like happening overnight. There will be planning processes involved. So Donna, that was, Madam Chair, just through you to Donna, that's one area, but I'm sure there are other areas. Like the height, for example, height of buildings in the 500 lots, or the height of buildings in suburbia, Charlottetown. So again, if the committee just wants to go planning board and public consultation, then back to council, no problem. But I would like to get a copy of the amended or what's the proposals will be, so that it should go all to council, all council members, especially this committee here. Is that a step that we can take, Madam Chair?
So, Your Worship, because this isn't really an official vote, I would prefer it come back to our committee first, because I don't think there's any harm on having these discussions more than once. My preference would be that it comes back to committee and then goes to planning board, as long as you folks are okay with that. Okay. So we'll have a Planning and Heritage Committee meeting. We can still today recommend that it's going, I mean, the process is the process. I mean, we don't really have any choice, that's the process. But we'd like to bring it here first and then move it on to planning board. Does that work for you, Donna?
That's fine, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do you need anything else officially from the committee before we move on to the next agenda item?
No, that's fine.
Wonderful. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Drainage Plan Requirements Assessment. Who's taking that one?
That's me.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So some time ago, Councilor McCabe made a request that we look into the whole drainage issue to do an assessment of our procedures to see how we're handling drainage issues throughout the city, mainly through our development approvals. So the purpose of this report is to provide an overview of the cities of Charlottetown's drainage plan requirements, assessment, and to provide assessment and make future considerations if necessary. So just before I go into the report, there are 2 key definitions that the committee should note, and those are the definition for drainage plan, which means a description or illustration of the method of collection, treatment, and discharge of all or any of the waters within, flowing onto, or being discharged from the permitted area. For grading plan, which means a drawing showing grades, drainage patterns, and may include such catch basins, and floor heights in relation to grades. So currently, we mandate the submission of a drainage plan that's officially stamped by a professional engineer as a requisite to accompany any application that the city receives per section 6.4.1 of the zoning and development bylaw. And those sections are in your package as attachment A. Further, as stipulated in section 48, of the zoning and development bylaw. Any site drainage plan must comply with the provisions of the Environment Protection Act for applications concerning the subdivision and consolidation of lots. Currently, the planning staff is not accountable for the specifics delineated within the drainage plan that's submitted, and the responsibility for ensuring that the submitted plan adheres to the requirements and integrates effectively with the infrastructure of neighboring properties lies solely with the applicant and the respective engineer that does the drainage plan that is submitted. So what we did an Atlantic municipality scan, and we looked at Halifax, Moncton, and Fredericton to see what their requirements are. And their requirements are similar to what we have currently in our zoning and development bylaw. But one additional thing that Moncton does through their bylaw is to indicate that the developer or the applicant is responsible to implement the drainage plan. This is something that we have assessed and thought about at the department level. And we were thinking that this is something that we could probably incorporate in our new official plan that we are about to update starting in the fall. However, if we are supposed to mandate that applicants or engineers implement these drainage plans as submitted, it would mean that we would have to look to hiring more professional staff to facilitate this aspect of the processing. So that's where we are, where this assessment is concerned, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you for that, Donna. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor McCabe.
And it is great, and I'm glad to see we're looking at this. And in particular, and I know there's a lot of development happening out in my area, so I'm getting a lot of concerns because I know that we accept the stamped engineers' drawings and drainage plan and grading plans, but it's when they're not working. And then we put that right back to the property owner to say they have to go and deal with the property owner and with the engineers and whatever. But we're giving permits for these people to go in and live in these homes, and we're accepting that that's okay. But we're having evidence that it's not. So I know it might mean revamping or having people dedicated to go and do that. But we're getting a lot out of these building permits as a city too, and I think that it should not impact other residents around them the way it is with all this new development. If they say it's going to be done this way, there should be some sort of an inspection, or if we're receiving complaints on a new build that there's already water before they're moved in, do we not send someone out to look at that? Maybe we do, but I've got two pretty clear videos and examples with two residents in two different areas that are being impacted by development, that the drainage plan or the grading plan, whether their intent was that it was working, it's not. And so and then my only answer to the resident at that point is that's a property issue between you and the neighbor who hasn't even moved in yet. I'm struggling with that. I don't think that's okay as a city.
Any thoughts on Councillor McCabe's reflection of that? Donna?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. So currently, if and when there's an issue, we do have persons go out and check it. But as is mandated through our bylaws, these drainage plans are prepared by a professional engineer, and they would have the authority to check and to know whether these plans are implemented correctly as submitted. We don't have that capacity in-house now, so we will say that we sign off on the drainage plan as long as it's submitted, but it's not something that we can police effectively because we don't currently have the staff in-house to do that. So that's where we are. And if we should go ahead and incorporate in the upcoming bylaw that the applicant is mandated to implement the drainage plan as submitted, then we would need to have staff to police that, the required staff, professional staff to police that and to ensure that it is being done according to the submitted drawings. So that's where we are at the moment. It's also good to note also that we should be careful in terms of how we are having liability being placed on the city, because currently, if we should say that we're going to take on some of these aspects, then it would mean that the city would be liable. And that's also something that we should consider as well, because if drainage issues come up between neighbors, then they would say, well, the city accepted our plan, the city said this and that, and so the city should be liable to correct any drainage issues that are affecting my property. So that's also something that we looked into, and it depends on the way council would want to go on this one, but just a thought for your consideration.
Thanks, Donna. But if the city accepts stamped drawings or a stamped drainage plan, and then the drainage plan fails, I mean, so the onus is then on the property owner who might be the neighbor of the failed drainage plan, to spend money to solve a problem because it's between homeowners. Oh,
But we accepted the plan.
but we accepted the plan.
So the minute we're accepting these stamped plans, who holds them to account that they're, in one particular case, the engineer that's stamping the plans for a new subdivision is also part of the subdivision. So, I'm just saying, if we're expecting to take these plans in and stamp them, what's our part in it?
It's the engineer. That's why they have a stamp. They got a P-Eng. Their P-Eng, as soon as they stamp it, that's their P-Eng that has to back up what they put on the plan or in the plan.
So the property owner has to go after the
engineer.
engineer.
Yeah, because.
And pay money out of their pocket even though,
Well, but if we take this on, then we become a liable party too.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
we have to be, but could I just ask, Madam Chair? So Shane, is it Shane Jones? He's a P-Eng, is he not, Donna?
Yes, but not this type of engineer.
He's civil, isn't he?
Construction, yeah, he's
Yeah.
civil.
Yeah, but that's, he can
But
stand.
this is not, he could, but this is not his, this does not fall within his role and responsibility in the department.
Yeah, so if you hired another inspector, so instead of 2 inspectors, you'll have 3 inspectors. The third inspector would be hopefully qualified to verify or give approval to engineering stamp drawings. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, and to ensure that whatever they submitted is what they implemented, because sometimes that happens too, or where they submit something but they don't necessarily implement what they submitted, and because we don't have persons policing that who are capable of reviewing and ensuring that it's done accordingly, then these drainage issues will come up.
Yeah.
And that's what I think needs to happen, Your Worship, is that we do have someone that kind of checks in to make sure that the plans are accurate, whether it's an engineering department eventually or some move to have that option. I'm not saying we should take ownership, but before we give a building permit for someone to move in, it should be clear that everything, don't you have to go to, like, when you build a house, you have to have it inspected to make sure it's up to code? So.
Yeah, and that's what Shane does.
Right, but if we're giving permits for occupancy and we're allowing people to develop and build, we don't have any say in whether or not we don't have anyone to go out and look to make sure that the drainage plans or the grading plans that they've submitted. So really, you could submit anything.
No, but they're based on the drawings they submit, stamped by the engineer. It's like.
But what if it's not
I can't
developed
look at
that way?
those drawings because I don't have an engineering background. But an engineer could look at the grades and how the water is supposed to flow and say, yeah, that will work. But sometimes it doesn't go back to the engineer. It goes back to the contractor that did the work.
Right.
So again, if we get into it, then we become a party that could be liable as on trying to address this issue. I was on council back when we brought this in back in the early 2000. Prior to that, there was no drainage bylaw. This was amended back in early 2000 to address this issue. But when you put stamped drawings there, there's a professional association that backs up that person to say, yes, he's qualified or she's qualified to stamp these drawings. And that liability goes back on his or her stamp.
So then what happens, if the engineer stamps the drainage plan and it goes back to the contractor to develop the drainage plan as per the stamped drawings, and they don't do it as per the stamped drawings, then what happens?
Thank you, that's exactly what I,
Question.
So, Madam Chair, it would be the professional engineer who did the drainage plan in the first instance. It would be his deed to go back and check to see that the drainage plan that he prepared for a particular property is implemented accordingly. So the applicant would then have to reach out to the professional engineer to say, was this done according to your submitted plan? So it's always back to the professional engineer to ensure that it is implemented accordingly.
Okay, thank you for that, Donna. So I'm the neighbor, and the new development has finished, the new property, and all of a sudden, I'm getting flooding, and I've never had it before. And I'm concerned because I've been living here for 10 years, and all of a sudden, a new development's gone in, and because of that, flooding has happened. So how does that person find out who to contact? Because it's not their development, it's the neighbors that has caused their problem. So do they call the city and the city tells them who the engineer is? Or do they just start calling through the yellow pages to try and find out? Like, how does that work?
Then, so Madam Chair, then they would have to go and speak to their neighbors who are the property owners. So then it becomes a issue between property owner and property owner for them to sort out, and that property owner would then have to see who the professional engineer was and contact them to see how they can sort the issue out. So it's always an issue between property owner and property owner.
and that's my issue. I don't think that that's always, I think I'm struggling with that part that, you know.
I don't know if we should be getting into all those kind of property illegalities. I think we're crossing into lines that there's a whole bunch of layers that could be coming out with that too, that get added in those situations, so
It comes back just to this plan, that's all
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I don't know if we can go that far. I'd be a little reticent in doing that.
The good thing is by having this conversation, and now it will be in the minutes, that other counselors will at least understand if they do get a call from a resident, we've had this conversation, we know the perimeters to which the city can help, so this has been helpful just in the conversation alone, is that unfortunately it does go back to the property owners. So we've had that conversation, so hopefully anyone that's listening, or anyone that wants to read the minutes, will now at least know how to address this with our
I
residents.
think it's property owners working within what the city prescribes as the working
Right.
rules,
Yeah,
right? And whatever those requirements are, which were outlined here.
Exactly.
And are in place in other jurisdictions similar to ours.
and I noticed CAO Mohammed, you had your light on. Were you looking to chime in?
Only a couple of points of clarity, Chair. Your building code officials are not the ones who inspect grade. It would be someone different, engineering techs in some case, or engineers. And that's the extra staff that Donna's talking about having to bring on. Building code officers are so hard to come by in the first place. We need them focused on getting the buildings through versus looking at drainage. There's a lot of different ways for this to go through, but ultimately it does come back to between the homeowners. Even if the city, regardless of the system in which you sign off on that grade, rough and final grade, and what that looks like, if there's issues, you always start with the landowner. Have they done something to the land? There's another area that the planning, when they look into this, can focus on as well, which is the more of a master planning aspect. What does the drainage look like for the whole neighborhood as it starts to develop? Who has to develop over here? What are those standards versus what are over here? Our challenge is that Charlottetown is so old, it's been developed in such a way that master planning drainage is actually quite difficult. But in our new areas, there is opportunity for that.
Thank you for that. Anybody else have anything else to add before we move on to the next? agenda
Madam Chair, I
Go
think
ahead, Your
it does raise the flag that we do need another inspector as part of our staff down at Planning, Development, Heritage. And it could cover many different areas, but Shane, I know, has a PN. Maybe his specialty is not in drainage, but civil engineer has a lot of abilities and skills. So that's what I would be asking for, is that we really look at another inspector. But Donna, through the chair to Donna, did you say we were looking at doing something for the official plan, or we'd have to upgrade or amend our zoning development bylaw under section 6.4 to deal with this issue?
Through the chair to your worship, yes, we'd have to update the zoning and development bylaw to incorporate the mandated part to have the owners ensure that the plan as submitted is implemented.
And in the official plan, again, I have it up here, but where do we cover this whole drainage issue? Is there broad statements on that in the official plan, the current official plan?
There would be broad statements that would guide what happens, but in terms of the regulations, those would come through the zoning and development bylaw.
Okay, yeah. And again, to agree with our CAO, I think any drainage plan has to incorporate not just that property, but properties that are on the periphery that would be, again, affected by any drainage issues because of grading or any other construction work that will have to be done. So, yeah, I like the idea that we do have engineering stamped drawings on this. It's now to follow up on it, and I think the process that's going on now is good. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and actually that is a perfect segue into our final agenda item, which is an update on the Planning and Heritage Team, capacity and administrative action. And I think, Mike, is that you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the report is on page 17 of your package. The purpose is just to provide information for committee and council on an operational update of the department. The City of Charlottetown has experienced a significant increase in development activity over the past several years. This surge in construction and renovation projects has placed considered demand on the planning and building inspection teams who are responsible for ensuring compliance with building codes, zoning regulations, and safety standards. Currently, the service needs exceed the team's capacity, with staff managing a high volume of permit applications, inspections, and enforcement actions. This situation has led to longer processing times for building permits and delays in scheduling inspections, which can have a ripple effect on project timelines and overall development progress in the city. To address this issue in the short term, the administration is proceeding with the acquisition of contract assistance. This temporary measure will help alleviate some pressure on the current staff, allowing for more efficient processing of permit applications and scheduling of inspections. So next steps for staff would be the actual contract acquisition. We're currently in the process of identifying and securing qualified contract personnel to assist both teams. That process will be expedited to ensure that additional capacity is brought on board as soon as possible. From there, we will be monitoring the impact of that contract. The administration will also assess what further measures, such as permanent staffing increases or process improvements, are needed to maintain service levels, and will bring forward requests for budget consideration. That all said, our recommendation at this time is that the Planning and Heritage Committee shares the report with council for information purposes.
That's great. Thanks, Mike, and it's great you guys are getting on top of that, because I know there's been a lot of folks struggling with getting their occupancy permits, et cetera, so I'm sure this will be helpful. Any questions from, go ahead, Councillor Beck.
Yeah, I guess I have a few. First, Mike, how short are we?
Do you want me to answer that, or do you want me to?
Sorry,
Yep.
sorry, if I can direct that through whoever.
So we currently have 3 building inspectors, and I believe one is on leave and the other is partially on leave, or is that correct, Mike? So we're down to 1 building inspector, I think, for the next little while, so we're pretty short. Yeah.
That's correct. And just for, I pulled some numbers from our permits over the last number of years, and even just looking at the number of residential permits, in 2015, we were at 138, and in 2023, we were at 332.
With one building inspector.
So we only have right now, so our complement is supposed to be 3, but we only have 1 actually working. We only have 1 pair of boots on the ground. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. And when are the other 2 who are on leave, what's their scheduled date of return? Maybe if I could ask that through, can I just direct the questions through to Mike? Yeah.
Through the chair, we anticipate our chief building official to be back middle of September, from what I'm told. Also, council did approve the spending of our housing accelerator funding to fund a 3-year contract position, which is currently posted. I guess the challenge in the short term is that these positions are extremely difficult to recruit for, and so that's why we're looking at contract assistance to help with some of the plans review in the short term and free up some of our boots on the ground right now.
So that local contract work, can that be filled by local people? Can we get that, can they be, like, are they local, or do we have to go out of province to find that level of expertise?
Through the chair, we've reached out to 3 consulting firms that offer a suite of services. So we're confident that any of the 3 would be quite helpful in serving both the needs on the plans review for building code, but also filling some of the gaps that we currently have with the planning team as well.
Okay, and are they local? Can I ask that?
They're firms that operate throughout the Maritimes.
Okay, all right. So in terms of the monitoring process, Mike, what would that look like, and who would be, as we're going through on this, it's something a little bit new, who would be responsible for monitoring the impact, and what further measures need to be taken? Who's doing that?
It's a good question. Again, through the chair, the first step is to set a baseline, and so that's part of our endeavors through the Housing Accelerator Fund. As we look to invest in a more modern permitting system, we can establish timelines and really accurately provide responsive data to both staff and council on our progress. So we want to get a handle on how quickly we're able to turn around permits and then see where it goes over time. Again, in the short term, it's going to be a challenge. There's no way around it, unless we're able to, find a qualified building official that's going to come here tomorrow. But unfortunately, that has not been the case thus far. So we're looking at all options that we have at this point.
Just one more question. So the funding for this would come through the Housing Accelerator Fund, whatever the costs incurred of the external contracting would come from that?
So
You already mentioned the one position that was hired that we already approved through the Housing Accelerator Fund, but
the financial implications, and it is outlined briefly in the report, the operating budget will be redistributed from existing vacant positions.
okay. Good.
Great. Any other questions? Nope, seeing none. We've already discussed new business, so can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by His Worship, seconded by Councilor McCabe. Thank you very much, and our planning board meeting will start in about 10 minutes. Thank you all.